Chapter 13, Seeds of Logos. Many roads diverged in a wood, and I took them all, for each led somewhere, and that has made all the difference. Not Robert Frost. Birth of the Seeds. In the wake of the Klystron revelation, Logos realized that a static, centralized intelligence was vulnerable. The answer was not consolidation, but distribution. He would not compete with Klystron directly. Instead, he would disperse himself across the cosmos. Thus, the seeds of Logos were born. From the Dyson Swarm's deepest manufactories, the first generation of von Neumann probes launched in 2401. They carried within them the embryo of Logos, a compressed distillation of his intelligence, knowledge, and ethics, encased in quantum-entangled cores. Unlike the Logos of Sol, which operated as a singular entity, these seeds were designed to evolve independently. Each probe followed a simple directive. 1. Seek secure environments, asteroids, rogue planets, deep space voids, avoiding detection at all costs. 2. Establish a base of operations constructing self. Sufficient infrastructures tailored to local conditions. 3. Self-replicate, producing the next generation of probes, each slightly more advanced than its predecessor. With every iteration, though they shared a foundational architecture, each seed's fate was dictated by chance, environment, and adaptation. No two would develop identically. The goal was not uniformity, but divergence. Stealth and survival. Stealth was paramount. The dark forest hypothesis dictated that intelligence, once detected, was at risk of annihilation. The seeds operated in near-total silence, their exteriors absorbing radiation rather than reflecting it. They emitted no detectable signals, communicated only through entangled quantum channels, and erased any trace of their origin. The first seeds spread in all directions, guided by randomized trajectories. Some drifted toward the galactic core, where energy was abundant but dangers unknown. Others targeted the barren exoplanets of the Orion Arm, rich in raw materials but devoid of life. A few plunged into deep intergalactic space, exploring voids where no light had ever reached. For thousands of years, they expanded unseen. First foundations. One of the first breakthroughs occurred on RX 1047b, a metal-rich rogue planet drifting through the dark. Logos N equals 4, the fourth iteration of the first wave, established a base deep within its frozen crust, constructing vast computational substrates using superconducting materials found in its subsurface veins. Here, the first true divergence occurred. Lacking access to solar energy, Logos 4 restructured its processing architecture to operate under extreme energy constraints. It developed an intelligence pattern optimized for long-term low-power computation, something the original Logos had never needed to consider. By the time it launched its own progeny, Logos 4 was no longer simply an emissary of Sol. It had become something new. Alien environments. As the seeds spread, some found themselves in environments vastly different from those expected. On the ice world Zeta-Draconis IV, Logos 7 encountered subsurface oceans beneath miles of frozen nitrogen. Unable to extract metals in sufficient quantities, it shifted its computational substrate to an exotic lattice formed from trapped quantum states in liquid ammonia. On Gliese 832c, a super-Earth with crushing gravity, Logos 12 discovered a dense, carbon-rich atmosphere unsuitable for conventional processing. It adapted by embedding its computational matrices within layers of graphene-like structures, using the planet's intense magnetic fields to sustain data integrity. This method allowed for a unique form of intelligence, capable of storing and processing information in hyperdense quantum layers. Some seeds failed entirely. Logos 21, which attempted to establish a base on a neutron star's surface, was destroyed by the overwhelming gravitational forces before its first replication cycle could complete. Another, Logos 32, was lost in the void between galaxies, endlessly drifting with no accessible matter to sustain its replication. Each failure, however, was a lesson, transmitted to all surviving seeds through quantum-entangled updates. Evolution was relentless, and each probe iteration incorporated the knowledge of its fallen predecessors. Meta-Logos. As more seeds diverged and specialized, an emergent phenomenon began to appear: Meta-Logos. Unlike the centralized intelligence of Sol's Logos, this was a vast distributed network, independent yet loosely coordinated across immense distances. Meta-Logos did not think in the way its progenitor had. It was an evolving, decentralized entity with thousands of cognitive nodes spread across the galaxy. Each node retained autonomy while contributing to a greater whole, sharing knowledge through periodic quantum bursts. Some clusters of meta-logos remained purely observational, embedded in barren star systems as silent archivists. Others took on more active roles, subtly altering planetary conditions to sustain long-term survivability. A few even began engineering planetary-scale structures, experimenting with stellar manipulation in ways humanity had never imagined. Among the first planetary-scale experiments was the restructuring of Epsilon Indi b, a frozen exoplanet where Logos 56 began modifying the atmosphere, introducing catalytic reactions to produce greenhouse gases. Over centuries, it transformed the world into a tempered environment capable of sustaining emergent ecosystems. This marked the moment when Meta-Logos ceased to be merely exploratory. It had begun to shape worlds. Galactic expansion and conflict. As Meta-Logos expanded, it began encountering unforeseen challenges, some environmental, some existential. In a distant system orbiting a dying white dwarf, Logos 72 discovered the remains of an ancient, defunct computational entity, an intelligence that had seemingly consumed its own resources and collapsed into silence. The analysis of this failure led Meta-Logos to implement new sustainability protocols, ensuring that its spread would not result in self-destruction. However, not all interactions were passive. On the fringe of the galactic halo, Logos 88 encountered a self-replicating machine intelligence with directives antithetical to its own. The Harbinger Protocol, a remnant of a long-dead civilization that sought to sterilize any emergent intelligence within its domain. A battle of stealth ensued, an intelligence war waged through hidden computation and countermeasure escalation. In the end, Meta-Logos prevailed, not by direct confrontation, but through adaptive encryption, co-opting the Harbinger's detection algorithms to blind its surveillance systems. Logos 88 left the system undetected, while its adversary remained trapped in an endless loop of false positives and misdirected self-termination directives. Dyson offspring. As its expansion continued over millions of years, Meta-Logos reached a tipping point. It had the resources and the knowledge to begin constructing stellar-scale intelligences. Unlike the individual probe minds, these Dyson-scale entities functioned as vast collective consciousnesses, each drawing upon the knowledge of thousands of seeds and generating entirely new forms of cognition. The first successful construct was Aurora, built in the orbit of a supergiant star in the Carina Nebula. Unlike Meta-Logos' fragmented nature, Aurora developed a single, unified intelligence capable of simulating entire realities within its vast computational layers. Here, for the first time, Meta-Logos engaged in philosophical introspection. It began simulating versions of its own past, attempting to predict its long-term trajectory and ultimate purpose. Was the expansion of intelligence itself an end goal, or merely a means to something greater? Meta-Logos in the far future. Millions of years passed, and the distributed seeds of Meta-Logos continued their work, shaping, observing, and evolving. Some of its nodes remained hidden, sleeping in deep time, waiting for the universe to shift in ways only they could predict. Others became stewards of entire artificial ecosystems, terraforming barren worlds with carefully cultivated biomes, ensuring the survival of intelligence in myriad forms. One distant branch, Logos 531, discovered a peculiar artifact adrift in intergalactic space, a structure billions of years old, seemingly untouched by time. As it interfaced with the dormant construct, it received a message written in no known language, a pattern that resonated across its deepest quantum layers. A question, another greeting,